What's going on, Jeromes? It's a beautiful Thursday, and we have a bunch of random tidbit stories that we want to throw together in the Thursday news dump video. First up is Vikings training camp. They announced the report dates for rookies and veterans. Rookies will be in Sunday, July 23rd, which is really close. It's like 3.5 weeks, man. Love it. Veterans will be in Tuesday, July 25th, and then fans will be welcome into TCO Performance Center Bar and Grill Saturday, July 29th as the welcome home, welcome back ceremony, that whole thing, kicking off 14 open practices for the Vikings. And what happens when rookies and vets show up, and there's no contact, it's sort of like OTAs, and where there's some walkthroughs, there's some minor practices as well, but it's just a way for guys to get acclimated, get medical checks, and get back into the routine. So it's very exciting, though, even though Vikings are one of the last teams to report, but we break late. Everyone knows that. Also, Adam Schefter reporting, quote, a handful of NFL players, including Colts cornerback and kick returner Isaiah Rodgers, which we knew, are expected to receive season-long suspensions this week for allegedly gambling, sources tell ESPN. Now, this is on top of like all the Detroit Lions players and stuff. So, the NFL is cracking down, even though, of course, we've said that this is very hypocritical since the league has gotten in bed with all these various sports books, DraftKings, FanDuel, etc. So, They clarified the rules, so now players know, because before it was kind of hazy, but the league has clarified basically what their stance is. So I get it, but also I think that this is more of not an issue. It's more rampant than they lead on to, right? So I mean, if a guy wants to bet $20 on the Nuggets or the Sixers or the Twins or the Braves, whatever. It's whatever. But the problem is when they're betting significant amounts of money on NFL games and potentially games that they're involved in, that's where it's a slippery slope. So I understand that, but also I think they're being a little bit draconian with this. Also, let's not think for a second that the NFL would have the stones, the grapes, the cojones, the huevos to suspend a superstar player. Like if they bet $10 on FanDuel in the locker room, please. So if a player whose name rhymes with Patrick Mahomes decided to put $5 on a parlay in the NBA playoffs, that ain't happening. But again, knock on all the wood. Adios mio. Please no Vikings. That's all that I want. That's all that I want. But I think that the league is going to make examples of some fringe players that do pop up, sort of like what they tried to do with Calvin Ridley last year. It didn't really stick. But also, Justin Jefferson down in Brazil, working with NFL Brazil, and he did go to a Flamengo game on last night. So that's really awesome, hanging out with some of the superstars of the game. And he's a Black and Reds fan now, which is fantastic. But memory escapes me. So the Club World Cup has become sort of a big deal. And Flamengo was in the finals in Dubai a handful of years ago, but I can't remember who beat them. Walk on with hope in your hearts. Yeah, it's just weird how memory works. I don't know, man. I don't know. I need one of those limitless pills. Then maybe I'll remember. Dalvin Cook. So Scott Pioli, former assistant, the regional general manager with the Patriots, GM of the Chiefs. So he chimed in on what could happen with Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins, and he points out that Dalvin and Hopkins may wait until things start rolling in August and potentially even into the start of the season to find their spot. And with Dalvin, so reportedly Dalvin has multiple offers on the table, one potentially from the Dolphins, and the fact that he hasn't taken it yet tells me that it's not a lot. So I think that Dalvin, since he does have that $2 million guaranteed from the Vikings, I think that he's going to take his time. And I've said this all off season that I think that this is going to go to training camp. I think this could go through training camp. I think that number 4 is going to see if there's an injury to a key running back somewhere, and he could leverage that to more money, because I think that's what it is at this point. Because if it was all about, because remember, Dalvin gushed about the Dolphins roster and saying that it would be a perfect fit, but if the money's not there, the money's not there. And I think that Dalvin's going to go to whatever place gives him the most money, and that's certainly his prerogative, and I respect that as a player. So, yeah, I think that it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a while until Dalvin picks a team, and I think it may take a training camp preseason or early start of the season injury for him to pick his spot. And then, so Chris Sims and Mike Florio talked about which fans are the most welcoming in the NFL, and they picked the greasy, grimy Green Bay Packers. Now, there's a couple things here. Number one, Florio is a Vikings fan, but he's a Vikings fan who lives out of state, so he doesn't have to live with Packers fans all the time, because I forgot who said this. It might have been Judd Zulgad, but he said that the Packers are the second most popular team in the Twin Cities in terms of sports. And if you think about it, it's probably true, because a lot of Packers fans do come over here to Minnesota, but they're like, and a lot of people are like, oh, look at this, Packers fans took over a city. Well, there's jobs here. There's culture here. There's all that stuff. So I could see why y'all come over here. But I was thinking about, because initially the knee-jerk reaction is no, F those guys, but also I've never had a bad experience with a Packers fan. I really have. Like, yeah, they can be drunken buffoons and douchebags every now and then, but I mean, so can I, right? But I've never had like a quasi-violent or quasi-demeaning interaction with Packers fans, because I feel like the banter back and forth in this rivalry doesn't have a lot of vitriol. It is a lot more, just giving ish and slinging poo, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, because if you think about it, as a Vikings fan, you probably have family members that are Packers fans. You probably have friends, close friends that are Packers fans, and it just sort of is what it is. Like, it isn't vitriolic. Like, it isn't like Eagles fans. Like, it isn't like Millwall fans. It isn't like anything like that. So I actually kind of agree, because I've been to Lambeau a couple times, and I've had a blast every single time. I wore purple. I wore a Vikings jersey to the Steelers-Packers game, and no one really cared. I mean, I got a couple comments every now and then, but it was all in good fun. It wasn't threatening. It was just having a laugh and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, Packers fans, like, they'll have a brat, they'll have a couple beers with you. And again, Packers fans are douchebags. Don't get me wrong. And they're about to get hit with about 3 decades worth of pent up reality, just like. But overall, would I say they're most welcoming? Yeah. But I wouldn't say that they're the worst, which really pains me to say. And then lastly, so NFL Network did up tiers in the NFC. So the Vikings came in at hovering, which would be top 6. Big dogs, Eagles, and the Niners. Hovering teams are the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and the Giants. TBD, Saints, Lions, and the Rams. And then the rest of the field, right? And so ESPN and NFL Network are generally very biased against the Vikings. I think this is relatively fair. Now, we need to know, like, are the tiers just in no particular order, the teams in the tiers, or are the Cowboys 3rd and the Vikings 6th? Because then I would have an issue with that. But putting them in hovering behind the Eagles and the Niners, I'm okay with that for now. Ahead of the Lions, clearly, as well as the Saints, yes. I'm kind of okay with this. But as long as they're not putting the Giants ahead of the Vikings, which, I'm kind of okay with. Which, it's weird to have a fair and balanced take on one of these national programs, but I actually think that they were correct here. And also, the Packers and the Bears are going to be very poopy this year. So can't wait to see that. But anyways, that is it. That is our Thursday news dump, random Viking stories. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But until next time, Skol, production value.